The galaxy had lived under the dark shadow of the Zerothian Empire for hundreds of years. Their massive fleet ruled over countless star systems, crushing anyone who dared to oppose them. Entire planets were stripped of their resources, and weaker species were forced into slavery. Humanity, once a proud race exploring the stars, was now trapped on Earth. Its former colonies, lost to the Empire's endless hunger for control. Humans were seen as weak, insignificant, and unworthy of notice. But that was about to change. Commander Alex Monroe stood silently on the bridge of a new warship called the Eclipse. His eyes were fixed on the vast expanse of space beyond the reinforced glass windows. The ship was unlike anything humanity had ever built before. Sleek and powerful, it carried experimental weapons designed to give humans a fighting chance against the overwhelming might of the Zorothians. Beside him, Lieutenant Rachel Carter adjusted her uniform nervously. Her hands trembled slightly as she checked the readings on her tablet. "Are you sure this is going to work?" Rachel asked, her voice low but steady. She didn't look at Alex as she spoke. Instead, her focus remained on the data scrolling across her screen. Alex didn't answer. Right away, he continued, staring out at the stars, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. Finally, he tightened his grip on the railing in front of him and let out a slow breath. "We don't have a choice," he said at last. His tone was firm, leaving no room for doubt. "If we stay here, we're finished. If we fight, well, at least we go down swinging." Rachel nodded, though her expression remained troubled. She knew Alex was right. Humanity couldn't afford to wait any longer. The Zorothians were growing stronger every day, expanding their territory and tightening their grip on the galaxy. Earth was running out of time. Behind them, the hum of activity filled the bridge. Crew members moved quickly between stations, double-checking systems and preparing for the launch. The air was thick with tension, but there was also a sense of determination. Everyone aboard the Eclipse understood the stakes. This wasn't just another mission, it was humanity's last hope, back on Earth. People gathered around televisions and radios, watching live broadcasts of the preparations. Streets were empty, as families huddled together, holding their breath. Among the crowds were Alex's younger sister, Emma Monroe, and Rachel's fiancé, Daniel Brooks. Both wore expressions of worry, knowing the odds stacked against the crew. Still, they clung to a fragile thread of hope. President Laura Hayes appeared on screen, addressing the world from the United Nations headquarters. Her face was calm, but her eyes betrayed the weight of the decision she had made. "Today, we take a stand," she declared, her voice carrying strength, despite the gravity of the moment. "For too long, we've hidden in fear. Today, we show the galaxy that humanity will not be erased." As the president spoke, Dr. Nathan Blake, the lead scientist behind the Eclipse, stood nearby. He explained how the ship's quantum weaponry worked, describing its ability to tear apart enemy vessels at a molecular level. It was cutting-edge technology, untested and risky, but it represented humanity's only chance. When the countdown began, millions watched in silence. The numbers ticked down one by one, each second feeling like an eternity. Then, with a deafening roar, the Eclipse launched into the sky. Its engines blazed brightly, painting the night with streaks of blue fire. For the first time in decades, humanity felt something other than fear. They felt defiance. High above Earth, Alex watched as the planet grew smaller through the window. He turned to Rachel, offering a faint smile. "Let's make history," he said simply. Rachel returned a smile, though her heart still raced with uncertainty. Together, they faced the unknown, ready to confront the greatest threat humanity had ever known. The journey ahead would be dangerous, but one thing was certain: the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. Back on Earth, the weight of the mission rested heavily on President Laura Hayes' shoulders. She stood in front of the United Nations Council, her posture stiff but determined. The room buzzed with tension as representatives from nations around the world argued over the decision to send the Eclipse into battle. Some believed it was reckless, a suicide mission that would only provoke the Zorathians further. Others saw it as humanity's last chance to reclaim its dignity and freedom. "We've tried everything else," Laura said, raising her voice just enough to silence the room. Her words carried a quiet authority that demanded attention. Diplomacy failed. Negotiations were ignored. They don't see us as equals, they see us as prey. If we don't act now, they'll destroy what little we have left. Her speech struck a chord with many in the room. For years, humanity had been pushed to the brink of extinction, forced to live under constant fear of the Zorathian Empire. Now, with the Eclipse, there was finally a glimmer of hope, chance to fight back. Dr. Nathan Blake stepped forward, his presence calming the lingering murmurs. A tall man with graying hair and sharp eyes. He was the mastermind behind Project Eclipse. He adjusted his glasses before speaking, his tone calm but urgent. "The Eclipse is unlike anything we've ever built," he began. "Its quantum weaponry uses advanced technology that can break down enemy ships at a molecular level. It's powerful enough to give us an edge against their fleet." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But I won't lie to you, it's risky. The system is untested, and there are still unknowns. However, if it works, it could turn the tide of this war. This isn't just about defending Earth. It's about showing the galaxy that humanity isn't weak. We're survivors." The council erupted into heated debate once again, voices rising in disagreement. But amidst the chaos, one thing was clear: humanity had no other options. Delaying action would only give the Zorathians more time to strengthen their hold on the galaxy. Reluctantly, the council voted in favor of launching the Eclipse. The decision was unanimous, though not without hesitation. Meanwhile, aboard the Eclipse, the crew worked tirelessly to prepare for the journey ahead. Commander Alex Monroe walked through the corridors, checking in with his team. He stopped by the engineering bay, where Lieutenant Rachel Carter and Chief Engineer Mark Dawson were deep in conversation. Tools clattered around them as they fine-tuned the ship's systems. "How's it looking?" Alex asked, leaning against the doorway. Rachel glanced up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "The quantum cannons are stable for now," she replied cautiously. "But the energy requirements are higher than expected. Each shot will drain the reserves significantly. We'll need time to recharge between uses." Alex nodded thoughtfully. "We'll make do. Every shot has to count." Mark chimed in, his voice steady. "We're running simulations non-stop. If we encounter any issues during the mission, we'll adapt. That's what humans do best, right?" Alex managed a small smile. "Right?" As the hours passed, the mood aboard the ship shifted from nervous anticipation to quiet resolve. Everyone knew the risks, but they also understood the importance of their mission. Failure wasn't an option, not when the fate of humanity depended on them, back on Earth. Families gathered around screens, watching updates on the Eclipse's progress. Emma Monroe sat with Daniel Brooks in a small apartment, clutching a cup of tea tightly in her hands. The two exchanged worried glances, unsure of what the future held. Yet, even in their fear, there was a spark of pride. They knew Alex and Rachel were fighting for something greater than themselves. When the countdown reached 0, the Eclipse roared to life. Its engines lit up the night sky, casting a brilliant glow over the planet below. People cheered and cried their emotions, a mix of hope and dread. For the first time in decades, humanity felt united. The launch wasn't just a military operation, it was a symbol of defiance. A declaration that humans would no longer cower in fear. High above the atmosphere, Alex stood on the bridge, gazing out at the stars. He turned to Rachel, who stood beside him. "Let's show them what we're made of," he said firmly. Rachel nodded, her expression resolute. Together, They faced the vastness of space, ready to confront the greatest challenge humanity had ever faced. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was certain: the galaxy would never underestimate humans again. The journey to Zorath Prime was long and filled with uncertainty. The crew of the Eclipse worked tirelessly, ensuring every system on the ship functioned perfectly. Days turned into weeks as they traveled deeper into uncharted territory, far from the safety of Earth. For many aboard, the isolation weighed heavily. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly around them, a constant reminder of how small and fragile their mission truly was. Commander Alex Monroe spent most of his time on the bridge, studying star maps and coordinating with his team. He knew the path to Zorath Prime would be dangerous. Enemy patrols roamed the outer edges of the Empire's territory, always on the lookout for intruders. Alex often found himself staring out at the stars, wondering if humanity had made the right choice. But whenever doubt crept in, he reminded himself of what was at stake. This wasn't just about survival, it was about proving that humans could stand up to tyranny. Lieutenant Rachel Carter, meanwhile, focused on the ship's quantum cannons. She spent hours in the engineering bay, running tests and simulations alongside Chief Engineer Mark Dawson. Despite her best efforts, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The cannons were powerful, but their reliance on massive amounts of energy worried her. Each shot drained the ship's reserves, leaving it vulnerable until the systems recharged. If they encountered a large enemy fleet, the Eclipse might not survive. Back on Earth, millions watched anxiously for updates on the mission. Emma Monroe, Alex's younger sister, tried to stay busy by helping organize supply drives for refugees displaced by the Zorathians. But her mind kept drifting back to her brother. She couldn't help but imagine him out there, alone in the cold void of space. Late at night, she would sit by the window, staring up at the stars and whispering silent prayers for his safe return. Daniel Brooks, Rachel's fiancé, felt much the same. A quiet man with a kind heart, he struggled to focus on his work as a teacher. His students noticed his distraction, but instead of complaining, they sent messages of encouragement to the crew of the Eclipse. Daniel taped their drawings and letters to the wall of his classroom, finding comfort in their optimism. It reminded him why this mission mattered not just for Rachel, but for everyone on Earth. As the Eclipse approached the edge of Zorathian space, tensions aboard the ship grew. The crew began preparing for the possibility of battle. Weapons were checked, shields reinforced, and escape pods readied. No one spoke openly about their fears, but the unease was palpable. They all knew what awaited them, an empire built on conquest and destruction. One evening, Alex gathered the senior officers in the briefing room. The mood was somber as he outlined their plan. "We'll stick to the outer routes," he explained, pointing to a holographic map floating above the table. "If we can avoid detection, we'll have a better chance of reaching Zorath Prime without incident." Rachel frowned. "And if we're spotted?" Alex met her gaze, his expression unwavering. "Then we fight. We've trained for this. We've prepared for this. Whatever happens, we don't give up." The meeting ended with nods of agreement, though the weight of their task lingered in the air. Later that night, Alex stood alone on the observation deck, gazing out at the endless expanse of stars. He thought about Earth, the people waiting for news, the lives depending on their success. He thought about Emma and how proud she'd always been of him. And he thought about Rachel, whose determination inspired everyone aboard the ship. For a brief moment, Alex allowed himself to feel the enormity of what they were doing. Then, steeling himself, he straightened his posture and returned to the bridge. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them head-on. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once. It wouldn't happen again. The Eclipse was nearing the edge of Zorathian space when the first sign of trouble appeared. A group of patrol ships emerged from behind a nearby asteroid field. Their sleek, menacing forms glinting in the dim light of a distant star. The crew sprang into action, their training kicking in as alarms blared across the ship. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. Commander Alex Monroe's voice rang out over the intercom. Calm but firm. Battle stations. Prepare for engagement. His words sent a jolt of adrenaline through the crew. On the bridge, officers scrambled to their positions, fingers flying over control panels. Lieutenant Rachel Carter stood beside Alex, her eyes locked on the view screen as the enemy ships drew closer. 3 patrol cruisers, she reported, her tone steady despite the tension in the air. They're scanning us. Alex nodded. Hail them. Let's see if we can avoid a fight. Rachel relayed the order, and moments later, a gruff alien voice crackled over the comms. Unidentified vessel, you are trespassing in Zorathian territory. Identify yourself and state your purpose. Alex leaned forward, his expression unreadable. This is Commander Alex Monroe of the United Earth Fleet. We are on a peaceful mission and request safe passage. The response was immediate and mocking. Earth, that broken little rock at the edge of the galaxy. You have no business here. Surrender your vessel or be destroyed. Alex clenched his jaw, but kept his voice level. We're not looking for trouble. Stand down and let us pass. The Zorathian commander laughed, a cold, hollow sound that sent chills through the crew. You dare challenge us? Very well. Witness the might of the Empire. The transmission cut off, and the patrol ships began moving into attack formation. Alex wasted no time. Shields up. Arm the quantum cannons. Let's show them what we're made of. The battle erupted quickly. The Zorathian ships fired first, their energy beams slicing through space toward the eclipse. The ship shuddered under the impact, but its reinforced shields held firm. Rachel called out status updates as the crew worked together to counterattack. Target the lead cruiser, Alex ordered. Rachel relayed the command to the weapons officer, who locked onto the enemy ship. With a deep hum, the quantum cannons charged, their power surging through the ship. Then, with a blinding flash, the cannons fired. The concentrated beam struck the Zorothian cruiser dead center, tearing it apart at a molecular level. Debris scattered across space as the remaining ships hesitated, clearly unprepared for such devastating firepower. They've never seen anything like this, Rachel said, her voice tinged with awe. It's working. But the victory was short-lived. The 2 remaining cruisers regrouped and launched a coordinated assault. Energy blasts rained down on the Eclipse, straining its shields to the breaking point. Alarms wailed as damage reports flooded the bridge. Shields at 40%. One officer shouted, "We need time to recharge the cannons." Another added, Alex gripped the railing tightly, his mind racing. Evasive maneuvers. Keep them off. Balance. The Eclipse darted through space, narrowly avoiding the enemy fire. Its smaller size and advanced engines gave it an edge in speed and agility, but the Zorathians were relentless. One blast hit too close, shaking the entire ship violently. Sparks flew from a nearby console, and smoke filled the air in the engineering bay. Chief Engineer Mark Dawson worked frantically to stabilize the systems. Sweat dripped from his brow as he shouted orders to his team. Divert auxiliary power to the shields. We can't take another hit like that. Back on the bridge, Alex made a split-second decision. Launch decoy drones. Draw their fire while we recharge. Rachel executed the order, deploying small unmanned drones that emitted false signals. The Zorathian ships took the bait, firing wildly at the decoys. It bought the crew precious seconds to recover. When the quantum cannons were ready again, Alex didn't hesitate. Fire everything we've got. The second shot tore through another cruiser, leaving just one enemy ship. Realizing it was outnumbered, the final cruiser turned and fled, disappearing into the void. The bridge fell silent as the crew processed what had just happened. They had won, but at a cost. Damage reports streamed in, and the mood shifted from triumph to concern. Alex exhaled slowly, his shoulders sagging with relief. Good work, everyone. But this is just the beginning. Rachel nodded, her face pale but determined. Beyond the viewport, the vastness of Zorathian space loomed ahead. Whatever awaited them next, they would face it together. The victory over the patrol ships was a relief, but it came at a steep price. The Eclipse limped through space, its hull scorched and systems strained from the battle. Emergency repairs were underway, but the crew knew they couldn't afford another fight anytime soon. Every corner of the ship buzzed with activity as engineers worked tirelessly to patch up the damage. Chief Engineer Mark Dawson moved between stations, barking orders and checking progress. His hands were blackened with grease, his face lined with exhaustion, but he refused to slow down. Commander Alex Monroe stood on the bridge, staring at the viewscreen. The debris from the destroyed Zorathian cruisers floated silently in the distance, a grim reminder of what they had just faced. He felt a pang of pride for his crew. They had performed brilliantly, but the weight of their mission pressed heavily on him. They weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for all of humanity. And now, more than ever, he understood how outmatched they truly were. Lieutenant Rachel Carter approached him, her tablet in hand. "We've stabilized the shields, but we're still running at reduced capacity," she reported. Her voice was calm, though her eyes betrayed her worry. "The quantum cannons need time to recharge fully. If we run into another fleet, we might not survive." Alex nodded, his expression grim. "How long until we reach Zoroth Prime?" "About 3 days, assuming no more surprises," Rachel replied. She hesitated before adding, "But I don't think we'll get that lucky." Alex didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned back to the screen, his mind racing. He knew Rachel was right. The Zorathians wouldn't let this act of defiance go unpunished. News of the attack would have already reached their leaders, and retaliation was inevitable. What worried him most was the legend of the Shadowbreaker, the Empire's flagship. Stories about its size and power had spread across the galaxy, striking fear into anyone who heard them. Some claimed it could destroy entire planets. Others whispered it was invincible, a weapon beyond human comprehension. Back on Earth, the news of the skirmish reached President Laura Hayes. Reports confirmed that the Eclipse had successfully destroyed 2 Zorathian cruisers and forced a third to retreat. It was a small victory, but it ignited hope among the people. Streets filled with celebrations as crowds cheered for the bravery of the crew. Yet, behind closed doors, the president met with Dr. Nathan Blake to discuss the implications. "They'll send everything they have after the eclipse," Nathan warned, his tone grave. "If the Shadowbreaker is reland, if it's deployed, we may have underestimated the Empire." Laura leaned back in her chair, her face pale. "Do you think they stand a chance?" Nathan hesitated. "They've proven they can take on smaller ships. But against something like the Shadowbreaker, ... He trailed off, leaving the rest unsaid. Meanwhile, aboard the Eclipse, rumors of the legendary warship spread among the crew. Some dismissed it as a myth meant to scare enemies. Others believed it was real and feared the worst. Morale began to waver as the reality of their situation sank in. They were heading straight into the heart of the Empire. Outnumbered and outgunned, Alex called a meeting with his senior officers to address the growing unease. "I know what you've heard about the Shadowbreaker," he said, his voice steady, "and I won't let's a threat we can't ignore. But we didn't come this far to give up now. We've shown them we can fight. We've shown them we won't back down. Whatever happens next, we'll face it together." His words helped lift spirits, but the tension remained. That night, Rachel stayed late in the engineering bay, running simulations on the quantum cannons. She knew their success depended on perfect timing and precision. Each shot had to count. As she worked, Mark joined her, handing her a cup of coffee. "You should rest," he said gently. You're pushing yourself too hard. Rachel shook her head. If I stop now, I might miss something important. We can't afford mistakes. Mark sighed but didn't argue. Instead, he sat beside her, helping review the data. Together, they fine-tuned the system, ensuring it was ready for whatever lay ahead as the eclipse continued its journey. The vastness of Zorothian space stretched endlessly around them. On the horizon, the faint glow of Zorith Prime grew brighter. The crew braced themselves, knowing the hardest part of their mission was yet to come. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, they held on to one truth. Humanity had taken its first step toward reclaiming its place in the galaxy, and no matter what happened, the Zorithians would never see humans the same way again.